Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, where we're going to be talking about building your brand. My name is Melissa Hippolyte. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at the CollegeBound Foundation, where we have a two college through college model. We have advisors who work in the middle schools, we have advisors who work in the high schools, and we have advisors who work in the colleges. A lot of the information that we cover in these webinars are targeting college students, but you can really use them for anybody. For instance, we did one on resumes and interviewing, and then we did one mostly for college students about using your career development office. So today we're going to be talking about building your brand, not so much your business brand, but your personal brand. And we have some wonderful guests. I'll give them a moment right now to introduce themselves to you, and we'll start with Mr. Johnson. Now, do you want me to call you Mr. Johnson or Adrian?
Call me Adrian. You can call me AJ. You can call me anything you want, Melissa.
Okay. All right. Take a second and please introduce yourself to us.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and just want to thank you, Melissa, for this opportunity to be with you today. Certainly excited about this topic. My name, of course, is Adrian Johnson. I am the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Municipal Employees Credit Union of Baltimore, MECU Credit Union. And I've been in this space in the financial services industry for the last 45 years. I have been at MECU for the last 26 years. So I would just say that my life was actually transformed. My career was transformed through education. And so I was a non-traditional student who graduated, who had a college prep education, who graduated from high school, but did not go to college right away. And because there was no CollegeBound Foundation to rescue me when I was coming through. And my parents said, we can't afford to send you to college. So, I guess you're going to have to figure that out. So I had to figure that out. And so I went to work before I went to school. I figured it out because I did have a good college prep education. When I started back to school, I was able to kind of make some progress. And what happened, I was trying to get a foundations of banking diploma. And through that diploma, through that curriculum, I had to take an accounting class. When I took that accounting class, the light bulb went off. That's going to be my career. I was never exposed to accounting before. I liked math. And so that was a natural fit. I went on to CCBC, Catonsville Community College when I was coming through, transferred over to University of Baltimore. So I have an accounting degree from University of Baltimore, and then I have a MBA from Loyola. And so all of this was last century. I've been to CEO school. I've been part of leadership classes. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here, education is important. Continuous education is very important. And depending on what field you're in and what you're trying to do, you may need to do more than just get a 4-year degree. And so I lined myself up for this position. I knew I always wanted to be in charge. I didn't know what the criteria was, but I'm just an African-American male from the west side of Baltimore City. And so all of my education is from Baltimore City Public Schools. The furthest I traveled to go to college was to Catonsville Community College. And so my experience is limited as far as getting out of town. I was supposed to go to University of Maryland. I was graduated top 20% of my class. Back then, I was automatically accepted into University of Maryland. Just couldn't afford to go. So here I am. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. So many good points there. I took some notes, so those questions are going to come back. Our co-host is just joining us, Cameron Fear. We'll talk to him a little bit later and get him a second to introduce himself. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but we're good to go now. Mr. Gamble, would you like me to refer to you as Mr. Gamble or Joel?
Either or. I'm like AJ. Call me whatever.
Okay. Take a second and introduce yourself to us, please.
Sure. So, Melissa, thank you. CollegeBound Foundation, thanks for the opportunity. I also am in the banking industry. And so, but unlike Mr. AJ, Mr. Johnson, I'm not 45 years in. I'm just close to 2 years in. And so I'm serve as the Vice President, Community Manager here in the greater Baltimore market for JP Morgan Chase Bank. I am a proud Baltimorean and proud Baltimore City Public Schools graduate. Unfortunately, I didn't have a counselor like Melissa Hippolyte when I went to school. And so, sir, I actually was a two-sport all-star at Carver High School in West Baltimore. And so I actually graduated and went to Shippensburg University, which is a Division II school in Pennsylvania. I graduated from Shippensburg with a criminal justice degree. And so I actually started my career as a correctional officer after graduating for Shippensburg, and then moved on, decided that I still had some sports left in my tank. And so I moved on with my journey and decided that I wanted to still pursue football career. And so I was blessed with the opportunity to play in the NFL for 3 NFL teams, played for the Philadelphia Eagles, the Cleveland Browns, and the Tennessee Titans. After that, I retired in 2011, came back to Baltimore City, where I started my own organization entitled the Joel Gamble Community Youth Outreach. And so I started to provide resources to youth and just provide what I didn't have growing up as a kid to those families and youth here in Baltimore. And after my NFL career, I actually got into several other careers. Teaching was one. I was a teacher in Baltimore County school system for 9 years. And then I was able, and this is a great segue to the topic today, I was able to build a brand to the point where a lot of corporations and companies wanted to bring me on board to help build their brand as well. I'm currently going through the process of possibly sitting on the board for the Mayor's Office of Employment Development for Baltimore City. And so I have 2 degrees, one in criminal justice and a second from CCBC as well in special education when I was a teacher. So I'm excited about this opportunity to talk with several special people here and to actually impart some knowledge on the students that are listening.
Awesome, thank you. Mrs. Gibbs, should I refer to you as Elise or Mrs. Gibbs?
You'll refer to me as you refer to me every time we see each other. Elise.
Girl.
Hey. I love this. This is the highlight of my week, and thank you for asking me to participate with this esteemed group of folks. And I'm also a proud West Baltimorean. I grew up in Edmondson Village. I went to, and for those of you who are from Baltimore, you'll understand that the significance of me saying I went to Western High School. And after graduating, I went to Bowie State University, where I got a degree in business monitoring and marketing. And my parents, I was one of the first to go to college in my family. My father is one of 13, my mother one of 9 children, and they had to pick cotton and tobacco and work really hard jobs and help bring each other up from the South in order for them to be successful in their own families. My father died when I was 14 years old, and the money my mother got from his Social Security was what helped me go to college. So I stayed very close to home, probably because I didn't want to leave my mother, and decided that I wanted to be close to some familiar space. I lived on campus at a time when Bowie was much smaller than what it is today, and stayed with my cousin as my roommate, which was just, again, being closer to family, closer to something that makes me feel like home. I graduated from Bowie at a time where it was really hard to find a job. It was the late 1900s, and it was really hard to, late 1900s, and it was hard to get a job. And I worked in a temporary role for a year before getting into a marketing role at an outdoor advertising agency, which is a fancy way of saying billboards. I worked for a billboard company where back in the day you would hand paint the billboards or print them, and then there would be a crew of guys that would actually put the billboards up on those gigantic boards that you would see all around the country and around the city. And after a few years, I've worked in so many different places. I had a job as a child support hearing officer for Baltimore City, definitely not the highest paying job, but a very fulfilling one. And I found my way into human resources, which was nice, and it helped me get into other areas of growth, but it wasn't where I really wanted to spend my entire career. I ended up going to Morgan State for my MBA, and it was there where I saw that, Melissa, it was there where I was able to say on the first day of one of my classes, I'm unemployed, I need a job. Anyone knows any jobs in HR, let me know. And I got a tap on my shoulder from a friend in my class 3 months later. Hey, Northrop Grumman is looking for someone in HR. I'm not interested. Are you interested? And I said, sure, I'll give them a call. Long story short, I met with the HR vice president, and I got a job that sent me across the country. I lived in Sunnyvale, California for 6 months, where I was responsible for labor negotiation support. And I'll talk a little bit about that maybe as we get along into this conversation. I've worked in HR for 2 years at Northrop Grumman, where I still am 25 years later, and worked into communications, decided to do something different, and now I'm the vice president of employee communications for the company. And that is a testament to a lot of the support that I had along the way, not just from family, but from people who advocated for me, people who looked like me, people who did not look like me. I had a lot of mentors. I continue to have mentorship even at this level. And it is a real, it was really eye-opening to see the level of support that one could get as you build your brand. And so we'll talk more about what personal brand is, and how do you begin to position yourself for the next steps and the next level. So that's a little bit about me. I hope I didn't take too much time explaining my background, but that's
you guys are fancy, like super fancy. And I thank you for making the time to not taking it, just making the time, because I know you're all busy, making the time to do this today. So all of you actually mentioned things that you did, and it didn't sound like a very straight road from when you graduated from high school, graduated from college to where you are now, a whole bunch of turns. So as we get deeper into the topic, let's talk about brand building. So what is that? When you hear someone say, okay, a personal brand, what is your personal brand? What does that even mean?
So I think about, okay.
Go ahead, Joel.
So I think about it's basically what people think when your name is mentioned in a room. So what exactly comes with you and everything associated with you. So like when somebody pulls you up on the internet, what are they going to see? What are they going to think about when they say your name, Melissa Hippolyte, or Mr. Johnson, Elise? What are people going to think about? I feel like building a brand can either propel you forward in life in a positive manner, or at times it can kind of bring you down. And I say that because I just think about some of the student athletes that I've had the pleasure of coming in contact with. And I also think about those colleges that have been recruiting student athletes. And those colleges actually started to look at student athletes' social media pages, and they started to, figure out, or wanting to build a relationship with those students because they're actually investing in those student athletes. And a lot of times, these students were posting things that might have been inappropriate, and they didn't realize that that was associated with a part of their brand. And the school would just say, "Hey, you know what? No thanks." And so we have to start to realize that, hey, everything that's associated with us, whether it's our friends, our family, our what we say on social media, what we say in the public. That's a part of what we're doing and a part of our brand ultimately.
Yeah, what you say and what you do as a hiring manager, as all of us are, I tend to look at not just your LinkedIn profile, but if I go to other social media platforms to see the character of the type of person we'll be hiring into not just the company, but the team, and making sure that the culture is a good fit. But your brand is really just your personal story. It's just who you are, what do you represent, as Joel said, what are your strengths? What do you bring to the table? How does it impact the community around you? You can just look to Will Smith. He had a storied career. Everyone loved him. Those who didn't love them, they were like in hush whispers. The minute he made one crazy mistake, some will say it ended his career, some will say it derailed his career, but it forever changed it. And so you have to make sure that what you do in your personal life is what you don't mind people seeing in your professional life. So I'm very cautious about what I do when I go out. I've always been that way. But, we were lucky, at least when we were growing up. We didn't have social media. We didn't have phones and with cameras at the ready. I couldn't even bring a camera and with a phone camera into work until a few years ago. We were free in a different kind of way. And that's not to say you didn't worry about your brand, but you need to make sure that what you do in the day can be done at night and vice versa. You do not want the work that you do, the way you support who you are, to come to a place where people are questioning your integrity, questioning your ethics, questioning your values. And that extends to the people in your circle. If your circle is causing some strife, you may want to decide how to change your circle, because whoever's in your orbit can affect everything about your personal life into your professional space.
Yeah. I
Oh,
just wanted to say, I mean, I agree exactly with Joel and Elise. I would just emphasize social media. Be careful with social media. The videos, everybody wants to be on video. And so, everybody wants to show what they're out there doing and all that kind of stuff. Be careful of all that. And so that, we can see one thing at work, and then somebody goes to that social media platform and they find out you're a totally different person. And that's not what you want. So your brand is your eye story, is your reputation. It shows whether you care, what kind of person you are. But certainly protect your name and that, your ethics and your values and your integrity, all that plays into that. And so when I think of all these things, I always humble myself, right? And so none of us are perfect, right? But just be careful to know who you are and who you surround yourself with. And so when I was younger, I was emphasized by my parents, right? They knew who my friends were. And so four of my best friends, one of which is my brother, but I've known one since I was 2, and the other I've known since I was 9. The other one I know since I was 12. And so those folks know who I know a lot of people, but those are my core. That's my core people, and they know me better than I know me probably. But make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people is very important. The other thing I'll mention, it's not who you know. One of the examples is not who you know. It's not what you know. It's who you know. The flip side of that is who knows you, right? And so when we talk about mentors and all that, I've been very blessed to have sponsors, people who are, when you're not even in the room, they're saying great things about you or saying good things about you. And that's what you want. You want to have good people in your life that are going to say good things about you, whether you're in the room or not. And then use mentors as folks that you can get advice for. And so undergraduate school I've been part of the mentorship programs. And so I've had mentors that are undergrads, but I've also had mentors that were in grad school. And so they're they're already in management and they're trying to make it to a different level. And so definitely you have to build out your network as you kind of build your brand. And so you want to just make sure that network that you're building, those relationships that you're building, that people can honestly say some good things about you.
I love
I'm
that,
hearing,
Adrian. I'm sorry. One more thing, Melissa, that I put in the chat: sponsors, mentors, champions, and advocates. They all equally kind of do the same thing, but in different ways. And Adrian just spoke on that. You want people to speak well of you when you're in the room, and you want them to speak well of you when you're not in the room. And that is a critical way that decisions are made. Decisions aren't made in front of you. They're made when you're not there. And again, managing your brand, not just what you do on video, but what you say and how you say it to other people. And people talk. Don't trust everyone that's in your space. They're not all your friends. And I love what Adrian said about the kitchen cabinet of his 4 friends. That's what I call them. Those are people who are close to me, who I can go and get advice and counsel, who do not necessarily work with me. So just be careful of who you expose your thoughts to, and make sure you understand that there are people who will be advocating for you when you're not even knowing or thinking that they are.
so when you were first starting, this goes to all of you, when you were first starting your career, first starting out, how, like, we can say what we should do or what we did, but how did you do these things? How did you build your brand? What spaces, how did you put yourself in the space to network?
So I'll start off. For me, it was trial and error, right? And so my first job was a coin teller. That job does not exist anymore, and I was making about $2.10 an hour. And so we won't talk about the money, but certainly I've come a long way. That job, like I mentioned, does not exist anymore. But there was a couple of things that was happening. I did my job, right? And so I was the CEO of the coin room. It was only me, but I was the CEO. And so do your job, right? And you never know who's watching. And so one of the vice presidents who was over that division, he um, he noticed that I actually cleaned up that coin room. There was a mess when I got there, but I actually cleaned it up. And so he saw that work ethic, right? And so when I was promoted to be a teller, he saw the preparation that I went through to get ready to just be a coin teller. I mean, just to be a teller. And so that was learning how to count money. And so for a lot of people, they don't have to count it. It comes out of machines now. But back then, you were manually counting dollars. And so I had to learn. I learned that first before I even knew what it was to be a teller, the transactions and all that kind of stuff, the system. So I would say do your job, have a work ethic, be ready. When you get to work, be ready to show up. Be ready to show up to work. And so, what makes you stand out as an employee? And so for me, I had this great work ethic, but also he noticed that I went back to school. And so he knew from that expense, that education expense, that benefit line item for the bank that I worked for, he knew who was in school. And so he saw as I was trying to make my way through, and so he noticed, this one individual noticed this. And so we're talking 5 years down the road, right? Where the bank started an accounting department, and he gave me a call and told me to apply for that position. And so Polly changed my life. That's one of those forks in the road. My friend who got me the job at the bank, that kind of changed my life. That's a fork in the road. Going back to school is a fork in the road. And so all these things, as I was building, you're building for that next step. And it's all trial and error because nobody's telling you, right? And so I just stuck with it. So you have to be consistent. You have to be kind of focused. There are times when you're always thinking about the money. And I can tell you, you're never going to make what you think you're worth. And so are you having fun? Are you learning? I was learning. I was taking advantage. That bank became my scholarship. So when I started there, I had a high school diploma. When I left there, I had an MBA. And my next job was at the credit union, and part of that job was running a $200, at the time, it's probably about $200 million investment portfolio. And so building that network, not knowing where it was going, but I was just staying, I was just staying focused and career oriented, and wanted to make sure that and it kind of, you go out there and apply for jobs and you're looking for more money and all that stuff. I'm glad they did not work out. Some of those institutions are not even around anymore. And so that's a higher power stepping in. But I've only had 2 employers my whole career. But what I realized was I was the highest ranking Black in the bank, which does not exist anymore either. But I didn't know any, but once I walked out that door, I did not know anybody. And so that was telling me something. I needed to build my network that was outside of that organization. And that has, I can tell you, that has helped me tremendously throughout my career.
Thank you. So just a follow-up question before I get to Elise and Joel. You said your friend who got you the job at the bank. So your networking started super early when you didn't even know you were networking.
I didn't know what it was called. I was just trying to get a job. And so I was trying to get out of the house to, them chores, my mom and dad had me doing stuff around the house. So I wasn't in college. I was going to a lot of weekend homecoming, having a lot of fun, but they wanted me to do stuff. And I was no income in that other than the greatest gift. They let me stay home while I was going through all. They didn't put me out. They say, you got to get out there, get a job, you're on your own. They let me stay home, and that became a blessing as well. So when I did get a job, but yeah, I was networking before I even knew what it meant. And as Elise mentioned, I'm the first one to have a college. I'm the only person in my immediate family to have a college degree. I'm the first person in my household, in my immediate household, to own a home. I'm the first one to have my own home built. I'm the first one to make more than 6 figures. So there's a lot of things that have come from that 210 an hour that I was talking about. But just because my family, my parents let me stay at home instead of kind of saying you got to get out there on your own, I took it upon myself to save money and to buy my first house. And I was 26 years old. And so, but it's that power of the network. You never know who you're going to meet. And you never know what the impact they're going to have on your life.
Adrian, we have some similarities in our backgrounds. I didn't like chores either. My mother was hard on me even after my dad died. And I stayed at home so I can buy a home, and bought my first home when I was 20. I had just turned 29. That was my first home. Wow. And I am the first in my immediate family to get a degree. I'm the first in my immediate family to build a home. There's a lot of goodness that comes into that hard work ethic. And if you don't mind, I'll transition to, for me, I just did the job. Your reputation is tied to that. I took assignments that helped me establish my reputation, even though I thought I could do more. My very first job at Northrop Grumman when I moved to Sunnyvale was to be a scribe for contract labor negotiations. And I had to sit with the union leadership and executive management, HR, legal, and take notes. I had 2 degrees at that point. I could have, pulled a whole, I'm better than this, I can be useful in other ways, but I did the work. I hand wrote everything out, and then quickly ran and put that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade typing class together really quickly, and banged out some notes, gave it to my boss. She nodded, this was great, but it was tedious. It wasn't a glamorous job. It wasn't by any stretch of the imagination what I thought I would do after graduating from Morgan with an MBA, but I learned a lot about negotiations. I learned a lot about leadership and influence, and how to just concede on things even if you don't want to, which is part of that negotiation process. I studied my boss, who was at the time, she was an older white woman, and she was just one of my very first champions. She saw how hard I worked, and she helped me have an amazing experience. She helped me to find who I was and my brand. She knew who I was, right? So it was about me being a hard worker. I didn't complain. I was a quick study. I failed fast and corrected my problems. I was capable of doing a lot more. And that one trait of doing the job that's in front of you is what has served me really well throughout my career.
Excellent. Thank you. Joe, how about you? How'd you build your brand?
Yeah, I would echo what both Elise and Brother Johnson had mentioned, work ethic. So, I think about all of the opportunities that were in front of me, or all of the opportunities that I actually went out and got for myself. And I think about work ethic. Another thing that comes to mind is taking initiative. And so, I don't just sit back and wait for something to come. I always wanted to take the initiative to do more. And then also to be teachable and coachable. I always relate things to sports, and I don't want to feel like I know it all. And so I always was like a sponge. And I hear Miss Elise, talk about how she was studying her boss. I always take things in, and, I'm able to be taught. And that makes me a better person. And because I want to be the best, I never wanted to be just okay. I wanted to be the best at whatever it was that I was doing. And I always equated to sports. Like whenever I walk into a room, whether it's finances, whether it's teaching, whatever it is, I'm so extremely competitive that I don't want anybody to say that they're better than me. And so I'm able to be taught, be teachable, be coachable, and work hard enough that I'm able to, outpace everyone else. And so that's how I would say you'll be able to build a brand. I just think about my career and my path to the NFL, and how it wasn't just, Brother Johnson asked me, did I get drafted? I didn't get drafted. And so a lot of folks would have given up right then and there. It took me 5 years out of college to actually get into the NFL. And so over the course of those years, it was lonely. It was a lonely journey because a lot of people, the percentage of folks that actually make it to the league is like 0.1%. And so I always heard that percentage, like, hey, you sure you don't want to fall back on your career or fall back on your degree? And I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. But just making sure that that work ethic is at top of mind. That's something that you'll be able to build a huge brand with.
Elise said something that I had to write down. You said fail fast and corrected your problems. Let's talk about failure for a bit. It's a little bit off topic, but it's relative to building your brand. So many people that I know, younger and older, you fail at something and you feel like it's the end.
Yeah, it's the beginning.
Share something? Yeah, say some more about that. What do you mean?
It's the beginning. I think we can be a bit hard on ourselves, especially if you grow up in a place and an environment or culture where you have to be the best, and you feel like making mistakes would not serve you well. But I have found that I have learned the most when I have made mistakes, because you can't undo that. It's something that's like imprinted in your brain, you remember. I went to an event, a trade show for my company in Turkey many, many, many moons ago. And I just decided to have a media engagement event that came complete with reporters and cameras and the whole kit and caboodle. Little did I know that I was supposed to get that approved, and I did not. Now, the good news, because that's a fireable offense, if it doesn't go well, it went off beautifully. But I'm not patting myself on the back over that. That was a mistake. That was something that I never forgot. And I tell people my mistakes so they can learn from it as much as I've learned from it. You can't do everything in your life 100% accurately. You'll win some, you'll lose some. You'll make money, you'll lose money. You have some good relationships, you make some bad decisions in ones. I've hired some great talent. I've hired some not so great talent. How do you make the change for the next time? How do you remedy the mistake so that it's not a problem, but it's a learning experience? And that's something that I've been able to do over time, but I think it comes with growth. And maybe the younger generation gets it much better than we did. But when we were growing up, when you you made a mistake. It was almost the end of the world for you. And now you're not getting beat up as much, and rightly so. So I believe in making those mistakes, not consistently being a person that makes mistakes. That's a big difference. It's I made a mistake, I figured it out, I process improve it, I change it for the next time, I document, I move on. Not I made a mistake last week, I'm making a different mistake this week. That's a problem. That's inconsistent performance area, but not I made a mistake and I'm learning from it and I'm going to show everyone how I can improve myself. So that's important in any facet of your life, whether it's at work or at home.
And I think that when we talk about success, we can't talk about success without talking about the failures that have come. And so if you talk to anybody that's successful, whether it's Tyler Perry or Oprah or whoever, LeBron James, all of those folks had to go through. I mean, Michael Jordan, he, got cut from his basketball team in middle school, whatever it was, but we all have experienced that failure. But after the failure, it's, how you bounce back. Like Elise said, how did you take that mistake and turn it into actually a teaching lesson or moment in order to propel you forward? And so not just soaking on your mistakes or soaking on your failure, but allowing those failures to actually make you a better person and have better skill sets to move forward.
Yeah, the only thing I would emphasize is feelings. So when you're going through this, you don't feel good and you're stressed out and you got a lot of worry going on. That's okay. And so a lot of times, we think we have to be perfect. None of us, nobody is perfect. But at least there's something you don't want a fireable offense. And so you don't want to be fired. But you're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. And you're going to have good people in your life. You're going to have bad people in your life. So, the ultimate decision, of course, is yours. But as these things occur, you got to keep moving forward. You can't, I always say you have that pity party, right? I get stuck in the mud for a couple of days, 3 days, that's it. I'm done.
Matt,
And so that's the way you have to look at it. But a lot of these feelings that you will feel, they are normal and it's okay. And so you just gotta keep moving forward. And
Yeah.
that's where the friends and sometimes family's not even good to you, but sometimes the people that really know you, that's where they chime in. That's where the value comes in.
I'll say one more thing, Melissa, before you hop to the next question. Sometimes it's the people in your circle, back to the brand and reputation and the company that you keep. Sometimes it's the people in your circle that will propel you into making a mistake. And you have to be really cognizant of how you work through that situation with that person. I've been on the receiving end of getting something negative as a mark against me for something someone did with something I did not know they were going to do, but I was associated with it. So by default, I was also in trouble, or I was the person that caused the issue. So you have to be really careful about the people you surround yourself with. And trust me, it never happened again. It was a mistake I never let happen again.
I'm hearing networking a lot, and I'm hearing the people around you. The people around you, your circles and your mentors, right? Where do you guys find your mentors? Is there like one space, Google, find me a mentor? Or where do you find your mentors?
Well, they got a lot of programs out there now, so they have a lot of.
ChatGPT can do it.
Yeah, maybe that's how you do it. But sometimes the mentorship is through the network. People they'll see this and maybe they'll send you a LinkedIn message. Or I have a friend at work. I did a mentorship today with a recent graduate of Morgan State, and it was because my friend, who's an attorney with the company, said, "Hey, I have a frat brother whose son just graduated. I want you to talk to him because he's in communications." And then I've extended myself in other ways. It's really, there are official and unofficial ways to get mentors. Sometimes it's through your church. Sometimes it's through your family. Sometimes it's just, you bump into someone at Target. It's in any form.
And I think the way that you show up in the various spaces will also open up doors to allow for mentors as well. So when the older folks actually see you, with your work ethic, you being able to be teachable and things like that, I think that it also attracts people to want to actually help. And just think about making sure that you're not burning bridges along the way as well. So when you come across and you're in rooms, be that person that lights up the room, be that person that's actually open and being able to talk to everyone in the room, and be a person that people want to actually spend time with again. And so I
What if
think
I'm
that
scared? What if a person's scared? What if like a person walks into the room, they're like, okay, I want to talk, but I'm scared. What do I do
you
then?
you got to put yourself out there. So talk about the things that you're already knowledgeable about. Talk about the passion that you already have. So we all have gifts, we all have passions in life. And so, sometimes you can just start off conversation by just talking about the things that you're familiar with, or ask a person questions, to have them talk more to you so you can be a listener, and then, be able to bounce questions and be able to give your own input that way. But I
It's
think that we've all walked in a room when we first started networking
yeah.
and didn't know what to do. But the more you actually put yourself in those rooms, the more you start to become more comfortable with actually being in the room.
If you're an introvert, find one person. It's easy for me. It's probably easy for Joel. Not Adrian. I'm not sure, on the scale of extroversion where you may land. But for some people, I would imagine that it's nothing. It's nothing to go on stage and talk to 200 people. It's nothing to be on this type of platform and talk. But for some people, this is terrifying. So find that one friendly face in the room and
Mm.
just walk up. It takes a leap, and you have to put yourself out there. Even you have to lean in on the fear if you want to succeed with anything. Just have to make fear your friend, and not and just push yourself to do it.
Yeah, you got to be intentional. And so you do have to put yourself out there. I am a introvert. And so you wouldn't know it because I've been around so long and I know that I have to get out there. But I had to be really intentional. I knew that I did not have a network. And so I had to get involved. There was a banker or a minority banker organization that I said, somebody told me that they were going to take me to a meeting. They never took me to the meeting. So I had to put myself in there and get out there and went to a meeting. And so the first meeting happened to be, it was a breakfast down at the Federal Reserve Bank, the local branch here in Baltimore. And so I intentionally got out there. The first person I met, I did not know he was going to be my future CEO. Um, but what I did was I knew he was a big shot around town because everybody kind of gravitated towards him. He had that influence. And so I intentionally, every quarter, I got on his calendar, and I would call him up and ask him if he would go out to lunch. And so he was somebody who looked like me. And so, we talked about banking, of course, but we talked about life as a Black male, how to navigate in the space. And so I got a lot out of that. I didn't call him officially a mentor, but that's certainly what a mentor does and a mentor is. And so he kind of pushed me. I can remember when I was first hired by the credit union, and he'll tell you I was just inducted to the African American Credit Union Coalition, their Hall of Fame, and he introduced me. And he will tell you that he did not select me for the job. He was not the guy that selected me for the job. But he's glad I was hired. But he would tell me, he said, man, Adrian, you're a smart guy and everything. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling good about that. Thank you. I'm pumping myself up. And then he said, but you got to share all that knowledge with other people. You got to get out of your office and share that knowledge. So people need to see you. They got to see, be good at your job, be good at what you do, but they got to see the other side of you. Are you helping others succeed? Do you care, right? Are you kind? How do you speak to other people? And so when I look at myself now, the influence, the go-to when people, people call me, or people will call, some of my people. And so these are kind of things that you like. You want people to pick up the phone. But the other thing I will mention is just, volunteering. Joel mentioned taking the initiative. And so sometimes, part of my success is volunteering, and volunteering sometimes means it's free. And so you are giving of your time. And so, but again, through volunteering, you'd be surprised some of the people that I've met and the positive impacts that they've had on my existence in my life. And so all of that, you put all that in a ball and you roll it up, and over time, I just feel so blessed and so fortunate. Just being part of this CollegeBound board. I'm on the board. I've been on the board about 9 or 10 years now. But it all started from just coming to a luncheon. And so getting excited about seeing folks from Baltimore City get an opportunity with the help of CollegeBound to go to college. So all those type of things add up. But
And
you got to be intentional. You got to be intentional.
we thank you for your board service.
No, you're welcome.
We have a question in the chat, Cameron, I think.
Yes. So the question is, how do you deal with the guilt when leaving a job for a better job when the people who helped you to build your brand are the people that you're leaving at that old job?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a real good question.
You know what? I had a boss once, and I got promoted and was moving on to another role within the company. And he said to me, I will never, ever tell you that you should not move on. I'm happy for you. And that's the answer. You do not want someone, they're not really a good leader or a good mentor if they're telling you, I need you to stay. Never feel guilty about that. If you're being trained well, if you're learning, if you're growing and developing in a going up this trajectory where you're doing good work, and you can look back and see all the people behind you that are propelling you, they want to see you move up. They are excited for you. They're rooting for you. And the ones who aren't, the crabs in the barrel, you don't pay any attention to them. But the people who are supporting you, they're never going to want to see you be stagnant and stay in the same position or be less than and not shine. No one is going to want that for you when they're actually for you. So don't ever feel guilty about being your best. That's how I would say it.
And I completely agree. Anybody that's on your side, on your team, is not going to want to see you stay stagnant and in the same position for years and years. Everyone wants, I know my circle wants to see me grow, and people that's in my circle, I want to see grow. And so definitely, like Elise said, don't feel guilty for wanting to better your career, better your situation, better yourself, because ultimately you bettering yourself will be able to possibly propel someone else below even further up. So always keep that in mind, that the higher you go, then the higher you can take those folks in your circle with you.
Yeah, so I have when you get to my age and been around so long, it's a story for everything, right? And so I I was in grad school. So what happened was our bank actually hired a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, did not know what that person did not know what the function. I had been in the accounting department for 10 years. 7 of those, I was actually the manager of the accounting department. And so the light bulb went off for me. Here I am. I'm not going to be managing people. I'm going to work for the CFO. I'm going to be a sponge. He actually took us public. And so I'm going to learn as much as I can from him. But from this as well, I'm going to go to grad school. And so I'm lining myself up. Here I have an accounting degree, but I'm lining myself up to be a CFO. I knew I didn't want to go out and get a CPA, but that's part of the criteria today and grad school. But I had the 10 years of experience under my belt in the accounting department. And so what I did was I went out there and learned. I was a sponge with him, with the CFO. He became, he didn't want to hire me. He did not know I was going to be handed off to him. And when he came in the door, and that was probably one of my bosses at the time, that same guy who was when I was in the coin room, he was in charge of that division. He was the same guy that was in charge of the accounting area as well. And so, I moved over, worked with the CFO, and certainly just kind of built on that. I knew that I wanted to transfer into the finance role. Had an opportunity to do that. I was his financial analyst, so I got the education under my belt. But I will tell you, I was part of a 3-year program at Loyola, so I knew when I was done the undergrad thing, there was a start, but I didn't know when there was going to finish. It took me 14 years to get a 4-year degree. So I was in this MBA program at Loyola. I knew there was a definitely start and I knew there was a finish. In 3 years, I would have my MBA. And so 2 years in, I said to my CFO, I'm going to be graduating next year. What are you going to do with me? And that was not the right answer that I received. I was a little hurt at the time. I had all these years of experience with the bank. And I thought that I deserved better. But that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so, I came as a coin teller, as I mentioned earlier. When I left there, I had an AVP title. So at the time, I was the highest ranking African American. But when they told me a year before that I graduated that they didn't know, they were like, we don't know. What do you want us to do with you? That was not the right answer. And so I knew that I would not be at that bank. I did not know where I was going, didn't know where I was headed, but I knew I was not going to be at that bank. And so it just so happened, and we talk about a lot being blessed, but it was lining all this stuff up. I graduated in May, and I started with the credit union in July of that year. And so that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I did not look back. So don't apologize. Don't look back. Know where you're going, though. Do your homework. Know where you're going, because employers are not as loyal as, like I mentioned, I've only had 2 employees over my entire career. That's a little different now. But know where you're headed. Do your homework about where you're headed. And know what you're worth. And you gotta be confident in yourself. You have to have courage. You have to be willing to negotiate. See, when I was coming up, if all you had to worry about is doing your job, everything else will be taken care of. Wrong. And so nobody will take care of you better than you, but you got to make sure as you go through this that you're certain about what your next your next job will be in the company that you're going to be working for. And so 26 years later, I am still here, still standing. I'm closer to the end of my career than I am the beginning, but certainly it's been a rewarding career. Not only just the work, I'm having fun, enjoying the work, but also being involved in the community, getting out. So, I'm about education. I'm about financial literacy. So I'm at a stage in my life, it's about legacy. It's about leaving to the next generation. So it's very important. My 2-year-old granddaughter, she has her portfolio already. So if you don't have any millionaires in your family, make one, build one. And
Your
so,
2-year-old.
Can I add something here? I know you're going to ask us a question, probably like, what would you leave with people? I feel like there were so many jewels dropped, but Adrian said something that I was going to kind of touch on. I think a lot of people go to school for their discipline, and they're very disciplined about their discipline, and they're focused. If you're not walking away with a financial acumen and understanding of business, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I did myself a disservice, and I have a business degree, but I probably should have taken more financial classes to better understand how to manage my money, how to manage stocks, and everything that goes along with that. It's not enough to say I have a checking account, and also so that you can understand the business and the finance of a company. that will help you. When you learn and understand the business, they see that, and leaders see that, like, oh, this person understands. Let's put them over here. Let's move them over there. That's what gets you to move around in the company, is when you gotta understand the business. And I also throw a plug in for communications, not me, but communications. Speaking, writing, presentation skills are critical. If you can't string together 2 sentences, start practicing and get into some kind of courses and classes to help you. Text writing is not the same as writing. Learn how to write. If you cannot write, you cannot control your destiny, your success. Speaking and writing, and I can have a whole series about that. But it's just something that I think is incredibly important. The financial business acumen and the soft skills of writing and speaking and presentation skills are huge.
Thank you for
All
volunteering.
those basic skills, you gotta have them. If you want to be successful, you gotta have them. And you're right. Emailing and text, that is not writing.
That's not
I know
writing.
this generation, you don't like talking to people. You want to text and everything. You gotta put your head up, shake hands, know that firm handshake. You gotta talk to people, gotta smile once in a while. All those things, basic things, that has kind of gone away. How you dress. And I'm not saying you got to have on what I have on, but have a sports coat in your closet, have a tie, have a suit. My dad used to say, have one sports coat, one suit in your closet. And
Dress
so
for your sport is what I was told. Dress for your sport.
that's for your
With,
sport. I like that.
with 2 minutes left, Joel, do you want to say anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think that it was a lot said today. But for me, what comes to mind always with career is always thinking about your passion. So what is it that you're passionate about? And that would help you, because always, it's not a job if you're doing something that you're passionate about. It's enjoyable. And so you always want to think about, what is it that I'm passionate about? And then, can I make a career out of this passion and propel myself forward? So that's what I was able to do. I found a passion within community. I was able to build a brand within community, and I was able to find a career within the brand that I was able to build.
That's great.
So many amazing tips. Jewels were dropped. Follow-up sessions on writing and communication and contract negotiation, because that's a whole other session that the students really need as they're moving into this next phase. We have about a minute left. Part of my job here at CollegeBound is to find our young people internship, jobs, shadow opportunities, anything that's gonna, in the younger years, expose them to different majors and expose them to different careers and different options. And in their older years, maybe internships so that they can get into it, or jobs, because some of our graduates did graduate college and maybe they're unemployed or underemployed. So Joel just put his contact information in the chat. If you two are available to do the same, that will be kind. If not, I'll reach out when I have a need. I appreciate you, and I know how to find all of you. It is 4 o'clock on the nose. To the guests who are here, Cameron put the registration link in the chat for our next session. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you for your time. For the folks who joined us today, thank you for being with us. Tell your friends, so the next time we'll have even more people here in the conversation. We're here the first Wednesday of every month from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Thank you.
It's been great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care now.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.